Did the Commanders find their RB1 of the future in Bill Croskey-Merritt? And if not, is it actually CRod, or is it someone who's not even on the team right now? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Full Command Show. My name is Grant Mitchell, and in today's video, we are continuing with the second edition of the player profile roster review series that I still have not officially named. And once again, I am soliciting ideas, so if you got anything cool, make sure you throw it down in the comment section below. Basically, this series is just me going through position by position the Commanders roster and talking about every single player there. What did they do this season? If they had longer careers with the Commanders, what have they done before? What am I expecting from them in the future? Should we trade them? Should we cut them? Should we re-sign them? What do we do? What are the bright sides, the pros, the cons, all that great stuff. And today we're going to be talking about the running backs. So Bill Croskey-Merritt, Chris Rodriguez Jr., and Jeremy McNichols, they are the focus of today's video. I thought this was a cool moment to go ahead and knock another one out. We did the quarterback one probably about a week ago, and I would say that's probably the frequency at which I would like to do this, maybe one a week or so as we build towards the free agency and draft period. But we've had so much news lately, I just didn't know if I would get the chance to do it or when I would, and finally, today we have a bit of a break. And as we all know, the Commanders interviewed Brian Flores for their defensive coordinator job on Wednesday. They interviewed Jonathan Gannon yesterday, Thursday. We're kind of just waiting around to see what's going to happen. It's not even so much that the ball is in our court. The ball is in the court of the people that we are interviewing, because Gannon's got a head coaching interview on Sunday with the Titans. Flores has got one with the Steelers at some point this weekend, and we're just kind of waiting for the dominoes to fall. But as we do that, again, I thought it would be cool to take a look at who is on the roster, because we spend so much time talking about who should the Commanders add, who should they trade for, who should they draft, that we have started to ignore the players who are actually there playing for the Commanders. So in this video, we're going to jump into that. But before we do, guys, make sure you do hit the like button if you're enjoying the content, subscribe if you're new around here, and as always, go ahead and leave your thoughts and everything I say down in the comments section below. So let's start this off with the team leader in rushing, which was Mr. Bill Croskey-Merritt. Even though he wasn't RB1 week in, week out, we saw CRod take that responsibility, assume that mantle certain times, but more times than not, it was Bill who was RB1. So to recap his season, he had 175 carries, 805 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4.6 yards per carry in 17 games. Now, before we go anywhere else with this, I just want to say, for Bill to have been a 7th round draft pick, and I'm trying to pull up what pick he was, pick 245. No matter what your thoughts are about this player, overwhelmingly successful pick by Adam Peters. It's so funny that he seems to have a great eye, and a great decision-making process for the late round picks, but it's some of the second round picks where we're looking at even the first. Josh Connolly hasn't convinced some people, even though I think it's a little silly to not have noticed the improvement that he had this year and to recognize that he is a 21-year-old, recently 22. But anyway, it's funny that AP does such a great job with the later picks, but the early picks, it's where he gets himself into some trouble, it seems like. But Bill, as the 245th pick in the draft, he comes in, he has more yards in a season than Brian Robinson Jr. ever had. He has as many touchdowns as him. I think he tied his career high. He averaged higher yards per carry than Brian Robinson Jr. ever did. Like, again, not to draw the constant B-Rob comparisons. I only do it because B-Rob could have been on the roster. He was here at the beginning of the year. He was under contract. So we could have played this year with B-Rob, but it was Bill and the rest of the gang, and we saw what he did. And that was despite him having some weird usage. You know, while he had 17 carries against the Bears and 18 against the Giants, he also had 4 against the Packers and 4 against the Broncos, and then 7 against the Falcons and 7 against the Vikings. So a lot of up and down, but overall, I would say it was a pretty solid season for Mr. Bill Croskey-Merritt. Now, the downside, one of the big issues he had was 4 fumbles, 2 of them lost. And the time in which they happened was just very unfortunate, because he loses a fumble against the Chargers, which was actually the best game of his career, that notwithstanding. The very next week, loses a fumble against the Bears, and then he kind of just gets demoted from there. And then he fumbles the ball again against the Giants. He fumbles the ball in week 18 against the Eagles. So we gotta wipe the butter off the hands, and we gotta make sure we're holding that thing high and tight. But as far as just his actual production, it was a pretty solid year for Bill. According to Pro Football Focus, or Pro Football Reference, I'm so used to saying Pro Football Focus, Pro Football Reference, he broke 1 tackle per 13.5 tackle attempts. So out of every 13 and a half players who tried to tackle him, he broke one of their tackles. That rate was 19th in the NFL. It was only 2 spots below Bijan Robinson, and it was actually 1 spot above Jahmyr Gibbs. The league average was 1 in 16.4, and again, he was 1 in 13.5, so certainly better than the league average. He was also 23rd in yards after contact per carry at 2.1 yards. I think that's important because yards after contact is largely what is the player doing. Yards before contact, a lot of that is just scheming, and then how do the blockers do. After contact, that's about the running back himself. So 2.1 yards per carry, the league average was 1.8. So again, he's outperforming there. His best games, they were the 2 100-yard games of the season. Like I mentioned, the Chargers one where he goes 14 for 111 and 2 scores. And then the other one was in week 17, 11 carries for 105 yards against the Cowboys, 2 touchdowns, and that included one of them being the 72-yarder, which was his career long. So the pros with Bill, the one-cut ability, the sudden burst through the hole. He has flashed terrific vision. That Chargers game was just chock full of it, but really early in the season, there were just a lot of moments where you're thinking, wow, this is like the best vision in the NFL. How's he even doing this? And then moving to a zone scheme, which it does seem we are going to be moving towards as we seemingly head towards that West Coast style of offense. Getting Bill in that zone scheme where he's just stretching the defense until he spots the hole and then bang foot in the ground, one cut through that. I think that could be great for him. I think that's absolutely the way to unlock the most of his potential because that's where he has shown his best moments. Even back in training camp before anybody really knew who Bill was, I can recall Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury talking about the one cut, foot in the ground, through the hole, and he's out of there. So that's something that they identified very early, and I don't think they changed the offense just for him, but I do think they tried to change the offense in a way that brings the best out of everybody, and I think Bill factored into that consideration. And then also a pro, he's cheap, he's available, he's a great character, and when he has the football, he is genuinely relentless. He might get stuffed, he might lose a yard, but there's never a quit. He's always trying to fall forward, he's always looking for extra yards. And back to that part about him being cheap. Let's just say the Commanders go out there and they sign or they draft Jeremiah Love, right? Let me look up the rookie contract value 2026 NFL. Because I know approximately what it's going to be, but I want to make sure that I give you the actual number. And of course, at the worst time, my computer freezes. Here we go. The Commanders are picking 7th. The rookie who is drafted 7th is supposed to make $35.9 million on their rookie contract. That'll be $6.5 million their first year. Then it's up to 8.1. Then it's up to 9.8. Then it's up to 11.4. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that Bill is as good as Jeremiah Love, but if Bill, with a year of more consistency as far as his carries, so that he doesn't have those games where he only gets 4 carries, also just a better style and philosophy for him, again, the zone scheme stuff, knowing that he is running back 1 and there's more commitment to running the football. If he was at 800 yards this year on 4.6 yards per carry, it's not hard to imagine that he gets to 1,100 yards next year, 1,100, 1,200 yards. And the difference in what Bill is making, which is what $1 million a year versus over the course of this contract for Jeremiah Love, if we took him 7th overall, that would be about $9 million a year. If that's your difference, if you're saving $8 million a year for relatively similar production, maybe not talent, but production, you could understand the value in that. Now the cons, he's a poor pass blocker. He has shown a willingness to try to get better as the years go on, but he's not great at it. He hasn't really shown anything as a receiver. None of the top 2 backs, neither of the 2 top backs did. It was all Jeremy McNichols. In some ways, they kind of didn't even really give Bill and CRod a chance to showcase their stuff, but whatever. The fumbling issues, that's got to get better. His vision in the middle of the season just disappeared. He was running out of open lanes, and I don't know what that was for. I don't know if he didn't trust his long speed to hit the open hole and he'd rather make a guy miss early instead of try to outrun him. I don't know what it was, but it did just disappear. And then if he gets hit early on, even though I said he was relentless, and he is, there's not always an ability to get started again. With CRod, if you grab his ankle in the backfield for what would have been a 2-yard loss, he's normally getting back to the line of scrimmage. With Bill, that's not always the case. So let's move over to CRod. This season, 112 carries, 500 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4.5 yards per carry in 13 games. So similar production to Bill, 4.6 versus 4.5 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns to 6 touchdowns, but 4 more games for Bill. Obviously, he had 300 fewer yards, that being CRod, but he also touched the ball, carried the ball 63 fewer times, so you understand why. Unlike Bill, CRod did not fumble the football a single time this year. And then the advanced stats, which actually you might think advanced stats would be more of a Bill thing because he's the guy who's got the burst and he's got the shiftiness. And CRod, you kind of just close your eyes and you envision him slamming it between the tackles every play, running into the back of the center and then wiggling around through there. Well, according to Pro Football Reference, the advanced stats actually love CRod. He broke 1 tackle per 8.6 attempts. Again, comparing that to Bill, who's at 13.5, you can see the difference there. And then that was actually the 4th highest rate in the entire NFL. So CRod was breaking tackles at the 4th highest rate in all of football last year. He also averaged 3.0 yards after contact per carry. Again, Bill was at 2.1, which is still well above league average. But CRod at 3.0 yards after contact per carry, that was the 2nd highest mark in the entire NFL. So it speaks to his ability to shrug off contact, but it also shows that the team might be able to do a better job of scheming him. And whether that's sequencing with the play calls, whether that's actually scheming up the runs, or just getting the linemen in better positions, executing their blocks better, CRod should not be getting hit that early, that frequently. And I get it, he's not going on sweeps and tosses to the outside like Bill might. He is more centralized to the A and the B gaps, but even still, that's for him to have that high of yards after contact per carry and that low of yards before contact per carry. You can find a way to get him in better positions. I mean, he did showcase some explosiveness and some burst. He did have that 42-yard carry against the Falcons, so you know that he does have it in him, especially now that he's lost the 10 or 15 pounds. But again, the advanced stats, they love CRod. His best game this season was against the Dolphins. He had 15 carries for 79 yards, which averaged out to 5.3 yards per carry. And that leads us to a big question. Should we re-sign him? So I think CRod, no matter where he ends up, it's going to be a 1 or 2 year deal for a couple $1 million per year. Something in, $4 million for 2 years or 1 year for $2.5 million, something like that. That's what I am estimating, and I am not in the front office at all, so I could be absolutely wrong. I'm just telling you how I see it. CRod is definitely, absolutely productive, but I don't think our offense will flow well if he's the lead back. And let me explain why. He softens up the defense to create the big lanes for the explosive back. That's when he would be used best. If we go to the Detroit Lions example, their model, David Montgomery would be CRod, moving it between the tackles, and you can get big plays there. You can get heavy workload, big gains, but it's Jahmyr Gibbs who comes in, who's the lightning bolt, who's the change of pace guy. Do I think Bill is as good as Jahmyr Gibbs? No, I do not, but it's the same sort of philosophy that they would take into this. The reason I say it wouldn't flow very well if CRod was the lead back is I don't know how he fits into this West Coast style of offense. I think there's going to need to be a blend. Something that Ben Johnson does a great job of is he marries the West Coast concepts with more power blocking, with gap scheme stuff where you're getting pullers and you're getting trap blocks, but it's while moving forward. So we're not running GT counters to get to the outside. We're still pulling our guard, but we're keeping it in the A gap or we're keeping it in the B gap. That's where I think CRod would be at his best. So if you can couple that with what Bill is doing, whether it's the stretch, get to the outside, find the hole and go, if you can couple those together, then I think that works very well. But if I just close my eyes and I try to imagine CRod getting to the outside, waiting for the hole to open up, and then he spots and he bursts through it, I don't think he would be a very productive player. So if they do keep him, they're going to have to make sure that they are committed to mixing up the run schemes. There has to be a diversity of run schemes, which again, using the Ben Johnson example, he does a phenomenal job of. So you never have to worry about that with him. But David Blau being a first-time offensive coordinator, not just designing the plays, but then sequencing them and knowing when do I call this and how do I get the most and how do I got to make sure that I'm in this call when CRod's on the field, but at the same time, I can't tip my hand to the defense. That's a lot that has to factor into this. And again, I want to make this very clear. CRod was very productive, put up some very good numbers, at least the advanced numbers. He's a guy that I like. I think there's a spot for him on the NFL roster, and not just on the roster, but I think he should be playing on Sundays. I'm not saying anything about that. But as far as this particular team with the Commanders, with what they know about him, do I think unequivocally 100% CRod should be back? No. Do I think that if they get the right scheme in place and they have the correct plan, then yes, 100%. But they have to be committed to doing that. There's also a question that comes into this, which is if the Commanders go after Breece Hall, if they go after Travis Etienne, if they go after someone of that ilk, I just don't know how much work CRod would actually get. Because those guys, they can be, your primary ball carriers. Bill would be working into at least a good amount because he showed you enough to at least earn some opportunities. And then those guys, specifically Hall and Etienne, that's why I chose them. They're also pass catchers out of the backfield. If the team goes and they sign someone like Arico Dowdle, who is more of a power back, then CRod's just not going to be on the team. I'll tell you that. He just won't be back because they would fit the same role. So with us having this change in offense and with there being uncertainty about which players are going to be on the roster, I think determining if CRod will be back or not really just depends on the Commanders' focus. In free agency, if they decide, hey, we would love to have Breece Hall or Travis Etienne, but we don't really have the money to do that because we are investing in our defense, then CRod's going to be back. If they say, hey, we got to get Jayden Daniels a game changer, we got to go spend the money on Breece Hall, CRod's probably not going to be on this team. So my final verdict about what's next for CRod, who is a free agent, if I hadn't made that clear. My final verdict for him is you have to be able to design the offense to bring out his strengths, just like you should for every player on your roster. That's not unique to him. But with you transitioning your offense to that West Coast style, you have to remind yourself to stay in touch with what works for him when he's on the field. And that depends on Blau's vision for the offense, his level of comfort doing that, and what Adam Peters' vision is. Does he want a game changer at running back? Is he going to completely ignore the running back spot, and then is he going to go draft Jeremiah Love, and all of a sudden CRod gets traded in the offseason like Brian Robinson Jr. does? I don't know. That's just my opinion. That's how I see it. If you guys feel differently, or if you agree, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Jeremy McNichols, our last one here. So he carried the ball 44 times for 221 yards, 1 touchdown, averaged 5 yards per carry, like 60 of his yards. A quarter of his production came on that one play against the Raiders. But he did have 25 receptions for 196 receiving yards. He did lose 1 fumble this season. I thought he was a tremendous third string and third down back. Honestly, unless we're rolling with Breece Hall, Bill, and CRod as our top 3, which I don't think that would happen. I think they would trade CRod or maybe trade Bill, in all honesty, if they feel they can maximize his value. But I think it'll be 2 of those 3 plus a third guy. And I would love it if that third guy was Jeremy McNichols. He's excellent in pass protection, and that shows up big on third and passing downs. And also he got solid yards after the catch when he was a receiving back, again, on those third and passing situations. So very good character. He's also very cheap. Signed a 1-year deal for $1.3 million last year. I think you get him back on that. Maybe even, I don't know what the minimum is, but you could get him back for about that same amount of money. So very good presence, experienced guy. He's got safe hands for like when you're trying to bleed the clock at the end of the game. He can catch it, he can block, and I think he should have a spot as the Commander's third string back, regardless of who the 2 in front of him are. But we are at the end of the video, guys, so I wanted to go over this again. This is the roster review, player profile, whatever series where I'm going through every single position on the roster, every single player on the roster. Let me know what your thoughts are in general. I understand that CRod has a lot of fans, and I want to make this clear one final time. I am a CRod fan. I really do think he will be doing a good job wherever he plays on Sundays next year. I just don't know if it's going to be in DC or not. But we're at the end of the video, so hit that like button if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. Make sure, again, you throw your comments down below. I appreciate y'all joining me, and I will catch you in the next one. Have a great day.